ang alam ko kasi, European countries are not in favor of this move of the United States. Well, I understand that because the Europeans are more into the so-called human rights, and all of this stuff. And of course, ICC, the way the Europeans see the ICC is parang ano siya, bastion of human rights and blah blah blah, justice and blah blah blah. So that's why the Europeans said hindi sila sang-ayon diyan. Pero of course, may mga allies ng United States na sang-ayon din, and even the so-called adversaries of the United States like China and Russia would even join, I think, the United States in their campaign against the ICC. Kasi ang Russia and China, they are not into the ICC. That's one thing I can tell you. So these are three superpowers. Well, Russia is a superpower in military, but the other two are giants in economic and military and defense. If the three will, bolt in and push for the agenda that ICC should be scrapped or wala na yan, buwagin yan, all of these three have malaki at malakas ang mga influensya ng mga ito sa buong mundo. Kung talagang itong tatlo magbo-bolt in para sabihin na wag na tayo dyan sa ICC na yan, it will happen. The three countries, Russia, China, and the United States are strong countries and very influential in the world. Kung talagang magkakasundo silang tatlo na, they go against ICC. I think the possibility na mabuwag yung ICC is not impossible.
Nabanggit yung na pagkasunduan. Hindi siguro ito na isa publiko. Sa pagkakaalam nyo po, na isa publiko po ba ito? Or dapat bang maisa publiko ito? Para at least alam ng lahat kung ano nga ba yung napag-uusapan. Meron daw, tapos sasabihin naman isa, wala naman daw, may status quo, may ganito sila na pagkasunduan, tapos ayon naman i-claim ng kabila. Prof, ano pong basa nyo rito?
Hindi, kasi ang mga ganitong kasunduan, especially kung sensitive ang issue tulad ng dispute sa South China Sea or ang tinatawag nating West Philippine Sea naman sa Pilipinas, ay not necessarily kasi din na isa sa publiko mo yan. Kasi it's very sensitive, and I don't think naman kasi na lahat na lang ilalagay mo sa public na hindi naman kailangan. Kasi it's supposed to be medyo security issue din yan and it has something to do with national security. So in a way, sa tingin ko lang naman, hindi naman kailangan isa publiko. Ngunit, given that kind of statement from me, ang assumption naman kasi dyan is both parties, naiintindihan nila kung ano ang kasunduan, alam nila yung mga provisions at alam nila kung ano ang kanilang dapat gawin para ma-maintain ang, kumbaga, both sides will be faithful doon sa kanilang kasunduan. So yun naman ang assumption kasi na kapag silang dalawa na intindihan, ginagawa naman nila kung ano nasa kasunduan. So ang assumption din kasi diyan, walang mangyayaring gulo doon sa area or doon sa anumang napagkasunduan, especially like for example diyan sa Ayungin Shoal or internationally known as Second Thomas Shoal. So ganun ang assumption kasi diyan. So sa akin kasi ang position ko, especially if mga critical, very sensitive, na medyo malalim ang diskusyon dyan at hindi agad maiintindihan ng publiko kasi mahirap intindihin ang South China Sea dispute. So hindi naman kailangan. Basta maging faithful ang both sides dun sa kanilang napagkasunduan. Ang problema, may mga ganito kang sitwasyon na, of course, I would agree, I would believe na may version ng China kung ano nangyari nung Monday na nagkaroon ng gitgitan dyan sa Ayungin Shoal. On the other hand, may version din naman ang Pilipinas kung ano nangyari. So, it's very hard to say sino ang tama at sinong mali kasi, of course, both sides would assert na tama sila, 'di ba? So, ang hirap nun. So, sa akin kasi, if you ask me, I don't focus anymore doon kung sino ang tama at mali. Mas nagpo-focus ako kapag ina-interview ako ngayon kung ano ang dapat gawin na hindi na maulit 'yan. Yung sinasabi ni Ambassador Jing na in the spirit of the provisional agreement in terms of resupply mission or sitwasyon ng Ayungin Shoal, ang term kasi na in the spirit, it's not even specific kung anong ibig sabihin yung specific kung ano yung provision or specific na agreement na tinutukoy niya in terms of yung specific ba. Pero ang ibig naman kasi sabihin ni Ambassador Jingjan is may parang sa kanila mayroon tayong agreement, andyan yung 2002 Declaration of the Parties of Declaration on the Parties of Conduct in the South China Sea na sinasabi na status quo, yung mga areas sa South China Sea na disputed, walang gagalawin, at mayroon din tayong provisional agreement. So ibig sabihin, ang kanyang sinasabi na both sides should abide by that. So, well, ang tingin kasi ng China dun sa nilagay mong mga barrier na around the Sierra Madre is some kind of a violation to a certain extent or some kind of not within the provisional agreement. So, ang kanilang perception. Pero kasi sa perception ng Pilipinas, ang sinasabi nila, it's dyan ang claim kasi natin dyan is exclusive economic zone under UNCLOS. So sinasabi naman natin na bakit kayo magsasabi na it's not within the spirit na samantalang as far as we are concerned under UNCLOS, it's part of our exclusive economic zone. So may karapatan kaming gumawa ng something dito. So yun yung mga debate kasi between the two sides. Pero sa akin kasi, tapos na nangyari na. So maybe the best thing to do for both sides is to talk na paano natin maiiwasan ang ganitong gitgitan at ano ang interpretasyon ng bawat kampo on both sides when like for example the Philippines will do something like this. Dapat kasi pag-usapan niya ng both sides ng mga diplomats kung what is the interpretation, kasi sa interpretation ng China, it was some kind of a violation of the spirit of the provisional agreement. But on the side of the Philippines, hindi ganun ang pagtingin. So I think there's also a way of bridging mutual understanding on how both sides would interpret the actions of each side dun mismo sa ground. On the ground referring to the disputed area in the South China Sea, including Ayungin Shoal. So yun ang kailangan na sigurong pag-usapan right now ng mga concerned parties, especially ng diplomats, para the next time hindi tayo umabot sa ganon.
Opo, and kapansin-pansin din na ang pagpapalabas nitong ganitong mga insidente hindi na galing sa ating Department of Foreign Affairs, mismo sa atin ng militar, di ko lang alam sa kabila, sa China ba, mayroon ba silang striktong sinusunod doon na tanging sa kanilang Ministry of Foreign Affairs maglalabas ng mga impormasyon? Sa tingin niyo po, pag ganito po ang usapan, usaping diplomasya, sino po ba ang dapat? Kasi alam natin, sensitibo yan. Iba yung kanilang pananaw doon sa ibang bansa, iba rin yung pananaw natin dito. Parang kung pagbabasayan mo dito sa side ng ating militar, talagang may kasalanan ang Chinese authorities, paraging nasa attack mode ang ating mga kasundaluhan. Itong pag-handle po natin dito sa mga communication na ganito para maiwasan po, natatanong tuloy, meron bang open communication ng Pilipinas at China para maiwasan ito, kasi hindi ito unang beses na nangyari sa ating bansa?
Sa akin kasi pag-usapan natin yung communication, kasi iba-ibang levels yan. Sa akin kasi, when you talk about this specific incident, dapat kasi, nung makita nila, sa akin kasi dapat, the Coast Guard of the two countries, they have direct communication. Importante yan, para maiwasan yung ganito. However, when you talk about posisyon, yung posisyon na mismo ng gobyerno ng Pilipinas at ng Pilipinas, paano mo ito i-articulate sa madlang people within the domestic level and at the international level, and even how you communicate it with China, sa akin, ang tingin ko, the Department of Foreign Affairs should handle that. Because that is already foreign affairs issues. That's already international relation and foreign affairs. This is a foreign policy issue. So sila dapat ang mag-communicate, sila dapat ang mag-present ng posisyon ng Pilipinas dito sa usaping ito at sa insidente na yan, at sila dapat ang makipag-usap sa counterparts nila sa China. In the very first place, the Department of Foreign Affairs, they already have a spokesperson for maritime affairs. Hindi nga si Secretary Lazaro mayroon na silang specific designated person to talk about maritime issues or maritime affairs. So siya dapat ang mag-deliver kung anong posisyon ng government. The problem with the Philippines is maraming voices, maraming nagsasalita, at ang gulo-gulo, and it sends confusing kind of messaging pagdating naman sa China or sa Beijing. Kasi sa kanila, sino ba ang paniniwalaan natin? Iba-iba yung tone and texture ng kanilang statement. Like for example, the AFP very strong ang kanilang statement. West Philippine Sea spokesperson Jay Tarela is very strong. But the diplomatic, ang DFA very diplomatic. So if you're coming from outside, hindi mo alam ano ba talaga ang posisyon ng Philippine government kasi iba-iba ang tone and texture ng kanilang mga statement. So pero may common ground naman. They are condemning or they're not happy with what happened at sinasabi nila agresibo daw on the side of China. But still, at the end of the day, maraming voices. I think in our side, dapat luminaw yan. Sino ba talaga ang magko-communicate when you talk about foreign policy issues pagdating sa mga ganitong pangyayari? However, that is on the level of trying to articulate kung ano ang posisyon ng gobyerno at ng Pilipinas. As far as I'm concerned, it should be the DFA. At saka yung kanilang maritime affairs or whoever spokesperson na naka-designate on maritime affairs. On the other hand, when you talk about ground situation, this is the ground situation na nakikita natin sa video right now. So dapat the Coast Guard and the Coast Guard of two sides nag-uusap. Like for example, yung nakita nila ang Chinese Coast Guard ay lumalapit sa may area ng Ayungin Shoal, La Sierra Madre. They should at least communicate with them and may hotline yan dapat na bakit andito yung Coast Guard niyo? Anong ginagawa nila dito? Can you clarify this? Because we are not happy with this. They should communicate at that level para alam ng mga tropa natin dyan kung anong gagawin nila at malinaw yung kanilang instruction na wag muna kayong mag-approach dyan kasi nililinaw namin kung ano ang ginagawa nila dito sa lugar sa area na to na kung nasaan ang Sierra Madre. So ganun dapat para maiwasan mo yung klase ng encounter na parang yung halimbawa ang claim ng China they were attacked, ang claim naman ng Pilipinas sila naman ang inattack. So ang hirap niyan kasi each side will have their own version of the story. And of course, it kind of elicits some kind of provoke some emotions from both sides na pag emotion na ang nag-rule, hindi na nag-iisip at hindi na cooler ang, kumbaga, it's not anymore the cooler heads that, function, but yung emotion na heighten. So nawawala ang yung rationality at lalong nagiging mas masalimuot, mas antagonistic ang sitwasyon. So sa akin, very important ang communication, direct communication between the two sides, especially sa level ng Coast Guard before pa mangyari yan. Kasi sa akin, maiwasan naman kasi yan kung halimbawa nagtanong-tanong both sides na, anong ginagawa nyo dito? Kasi ganito ang ginagawa namin. Hindi yung tipong nung makita, pumunta, ayan na, nagkagit-gitan na. Buti nga, sa awa ng Diyos, hindi nagkaroon ng escalation. Though, may injury kasi isa sa mga tropa natin nasugat sa ulo. But I don't think it's an intentional on the part of the Chinese na, magkaroon ng injury on our side. But within the situation, emotional na yan At may emotions na involved na dyan. So, of course, nagpapanik at saka magagawa mo kung ano magagawa mo. So, kaya umabot tayo sa ganito, when in fact, I think it can be avoided.
Opo. Prof, bago lang si partner MJ, kamakailan lang, siguro last week ata ito, nagkaroon ng joint statement yung US State Department at ibang mga bansa ukol nga po dito sa ika-10 anibersaryo nung naging desisyon ng yung arbitration ruling po noong 2016. Kapansin-pansin na nung mga unang mga mga bansa na talagang sumusuporta dito mas marami kumpara dito ngayon, parang nasa 13 na lang ata. At tayo lang, tayo naman talaga yung Pilipinas, so suporta talaga dito. Pero wala tayong mga kapitbahay na mga bansa dito sa Southeast Asia na nag-join dito sa joint statement ng Estados Unidos po, Prof. Ano bang kalaga nito? Mahalaga ba itong mga ganitong mga pahayag po?
Sa akin kasi mahalaga na, ang statement naman kasi, ang suporta ng Pilipinas when you talk about the 2016 arbitral ruling, ay nanggagaling sa alyansa ng Amerika. That's very clear. Lahat naman dyan is alyado ng mga ng Amerikano. So it's very obvious na, because we're an ally of the United States as well, to a certain extent. At saka, western side of the world, western countries ang karamihan na nagsumuporta sa statement na yan. Sa akin naman, value judgment-wise, I don't see anything negative about it in a way. But sa akin lang, ang tingin ko lang dyan is, kung gusto, well, supposedly dapat kasi, ang primary na magsusuporta sa atin kasi we're part of Southeast Asia, we're part of ASEAN, and we're part of Asia is supposedly that our neighbors and our family in ASEAN. But it's just so sad na walang isang country sa ASEAN ang actually nagbigay ng suporta dun sa statement affirming the 2016 arbitral ruling. It is sad as far as the Philippines is concerned. Kasi dapat, ang unang susuporta sa atin is ang ating mga kapamilya at neighbors dyan sa ASEAN. Kasi we're part of ASEAN eh. So, naiintindihan ko naman why the ASEAN states will not outright or will not even sign their names dun sa statement. Precisely because in ASEAN kasi, as much as possible, ASEAN countries don't want to escalate this tension in the South China Sea. They want it resolved peacefully, amicably, and in a diplomatic manner. Kasi kapag sila naman ay mag-sign dyan sa statement na yan, they need to think of how China will feel about it. And of course, they need to be very careful because as economies in Southeast Asia, mayroon silang magandang relation with China, and they don't want, of course, China to be hurt if they will sign their names in that statement kasi they have their own relationship, which is understandable if you look at the national interest from a national interest perspective ng bawat countries in ASEAN or even in Asia. So may ganun. Pero kaya nga sinasabi ko, dapat we need to articulate our position to our own, to ASEAN countries na maintindihan nila kung nasaan tayo nakaposisyon. Kasi kung sino ang dapat sumuporta sa atin at kung saan tayo nakabilong, we belong to Asia and we belong to Southeast Asia. So dapat mas closer, mas nakukuha natin yung suporta ng ating mga karating na bansa. Pero unfortunately, at this time, wala kang makikitang ganon. And it's very understandable as far as ASEAN states are concerned. So sa akin, well, obvious naman na ang mga countries na sumuporta sa 2016 arbitral ruling are allies of the United States, and we are ally of the United States militarily speaking, and these are also states na very critical of China in many ways. Nandyan ang Japan, nandyan ang United States, and UK, and all of this. You can see the relationship of these countries with China. It's very obvious. So may ganon siyang dynamic. So may geopolitical na aspeto din ito in every way.
Prof, good evening. Si MJ po ito. Nabanggit niyo po ang US. Ano po ang masasabi niyo dito po sa PAC Silica deal na nakatakda pong nasa pipeline na, no? In the works na para po maaprobahan ng US at ng Pilipinas. At gaano ito makakaapekto po sa ating pong diplomatikong mga hakbangin para po magkaroon tayo, Prof, ng kumbaga friends to all, enemies to none na mga galaw pagdating po sa ating pong foreign relations, Prof.
Wait ha, hinahanap ko kasi yung dyan yung tawag nito, yung poster na ginawa about dyan na no to PAC Silica kasi may mga points doon na naka-raise. Ang kasi dyan, ang alam ko, the Chinese I think are not happy with that PAC Silica. And also, pero that is their perspective. Pero mas concern ako sa Pilipinas kung ano nga ba yung PAC Silica na yan, ano ang benefit na makukuha mo, is it really for the Philippines? What is it really all about? Kasi may mga issues na critical dyan. Una, ang allegedly walang renta. Hindi rerentahan ng United States ang area na 4,000 acres of land. First 2 years. Ang tanong ko, why? Bakit hindi rirentahan? Pangatlo, may issue on water. May mga data kasi para magiging siya technological hub, security, economic corridor, but much more on technology and AI. And ganon. So ngayon may issue din siya ng tinatawag mong water. Data centers consume massive amount of water. So ang tanong, sino ang magpo-provide ng water? kaninong gastos yan, at paano magkakaroon ng flow. Kasi ang mga data centers, I've been to many data centers in China, in other parts of, in many other countries. Nakita ko na at alam ko kung ano ibig sabihin ng data center. It requires a lot of water and it has to be cool. Cooler dapat ang environment mo para hindi masira ang machines. Kasi data center nga yan. So ngayon ang tanong, may issue of supply of water at saka sino nga ba ang magpo-provide. And tayo nga, may problema nga tayo sa water supply, pero pag tinayo mo yan, that's another added water supply na kailangan mong gawin. Pangatlo is yung mining. Mining are natural resources to supply foreign industries. Kasi pag sinabi mong AI technology, kailangan mo ng mga minerals and elements dyan. So mining is an issue. Ibig sabihin, kukunin nila yung natural resources natin, gagamitin ng Amerika for that pack silica in whatever industry tatayo nila sa 4,000 acres of land. Ang tanong ko, anong makukuha? Ano ang exchanges natin dyan na kung saan sila ang magbe-benefit at kukunin nila at gagamitin nila ang mineral resources ng Pilipinas or natural resource ng Pilipinas, at magkakaroon ka din ng issue of disaster. Kasi natural environment the possibility na madi-destroy ang natural environment is nandyan. Pangatlo is yung issue ng semiconductors. Dual use of technology. Pag sinabi mong semiconductor, dapat malinaw sa Pilipinas, ano yun? Ano ibig sabihin? Kasi dual ang purpose ng semiconductor. It is for technology that is civilian purposes and may military purposes ka dyan. So ano ba talaga ang issue dyan when you talk about the Americans? Kasi ang mga Americans, they also have plans to implement and build ammunition factories in the Philippines. May issue dyan eh. So ano-ano yan? And then safety. Imagine a proposed of 99-year agreement. 99, almost 100 years. Ito yung sinasabi, nasa pipeline na siya. Ano ba talaga ang score dyan? How the Philippines benefit from it? At the same time, paano i-resolve itong mga issues na sinabi ko? On the other hand, ano ang tingin ng mga karatig na bansa natin tulad ng China, ng ASEAN states, na kung saan ang alam ko, some countries in ASEAN, even leaders and counterparts in ASEAN, I was in an interview earlier with CGTN, I heard a perspective coming from a Malaysian former MP. Sinasabi niya, hindi siya nag-agree dyan sa pack silica na yan na itatayo sa Pilipinas. So sabi ko, ibig sabihin, ang perspective coming from our neighbors ay hindi okay on that. Kasi nga, when you talk about semiconductors, na isa sa mga plano ng Amerika, ilalagay, itatayo at magiging manufacturing at maging industry dyan sa pack silica area na 4,000 acres. Dalawa nga ang purpose niyan, dual yan. May civilian ka, may military. So ano ang talagang score when it comes to this? So ang daming issue, yet walang information na ibinibigay yung gobyerno to educate the Filipino public kung ano ba talaga yan. And at the same time, lahat ng proseso is very quiet, very parang sikreto masyado, tapos bigla na lang out of the blue, nasa pipeline na yan at may implement na at mangyayari na. So, sabi ko, ang bilis Kasi 3 months ago, pinag-uusapan pa lang. Ngayon, nasa pipeline na, tapos implementable na. Sabi ko, bakit walang information? Walang educational information sa buong Pilipinas and what it is really all about? So, yun yung tingin ko dyan.
Opo, at Prof, hindi po ba pagdating sa semiconductor naman, nangunguna po tayo, no? Yan yung pangunahin nating produkto, pang-export po. So kumbaga, may kakayanan tayo na ang manguna para rito. Why not tayo ba? Kakayanin ba natin at kailangan pa natin ng tulong? Kasi ito na yung nangunguna nating pang-export, kung di ako nagkakamali po.
Export, Yun na nga hindi ko maintindihan sa gobyerno natin. We can actually do ourselves, and we need investors and we need more financial, financial investment. But we can do it kasi we have the capacity for it. Yun nga sinasabi ko. And even, karamihan ng nagtatrabaho ng mga OFW sa Taiwan, alam mo kung saan sila, karamihan sa kanila, ang OFW natin sa Taiwan, kung saan nagtatrabaho, nasa semiconductor industry. So, sa akin, we can do it, but the problem is yung political will to even consider na dapat maging Pilipinas na yan, maging project na natin yan, maging industry natin yan, na tayo hindi mo kailangan ng ibang bansa para magtayo niyan sa atin na ang benefit hindi naman sa kanila at ang profit niyan hindi sa kanila. At medyo may sideline story pa kasi nga may military aspect ka na hindi natin alam kung ano ba talaga ang plano ng United States on that. So, yun ang sinasabi ko. Kaya lang, yan ang problema ng Pilipinas. Kung ano yung tinatawag mong competitive advantage natin, which is, I think, itong area, itong semiconductor industry is one of our competitive advantage. Pero hindi natin nakikita at hindi natin minamaximize, hindi natin binibigyan ng pondo or attention or even, due course. Yun yung problema eh. Kaya, well, yun ang problema ng Pilipinas. Matagal
Opo.
na.
Opo. Huling topic na lang po, Prof, yung naging pahayag naman ng Estados Unidos laban po sa ICC. Ano naman ang nakikita nyo pong epekto rito, or kung magmamatigas yung ating gobyerno, lalo na't may issue doon sa pagpapadala kay former President Rodrigo Duterte, magiging walang silbi pa rin ito?
Well, the United States is the United States. Even hindi mag-agree ang Pilipinas, if they want to force it, well, it is still a superpower and it still has a lot of influence in the world. So I think kahit mag-agree o hindi ang Pilipinas, if really under Trump administration they want to, campaign against ICC, buwagin nila yan. Kahit hindi mag-agree si Marcos Jr., mangyayari yan. It's the United States that we're talking about. So, pero, ang tingin ko naman kasi dyan, if Trump will really pressure BBM na, you have to agree with us, or else, wala namang magagawa si BBM or ang Philippine administration when it comes to these things eh. So, yun yung mga usapin dyan. Pero sa akin, I think if the United States is really, decided, tapos, strong talaga ang kanilang paninindigan, I think they will do everything in their capacity and even influence their allies to go to para makiayon sa kanila. Pero ang alam ko kasi, European countries are not in favor of this move of the United States. Well, I understand that because the Europeans are more into the so-called human rights, and all of this stuff. And of course, ICC, the way the Europeans see the ICC is parang siya, bastion of human rights and blah blah blah, justice and blah blah blah. So that's why the Europeans said hindi sila sang-ayon dyan. Pero of course, may mga allies ng United States na sang-ayon din, and even the so-called adversaries of the United States like China and Russia would even join, I think, the United States in their campaign against the ICC. Kasi ang Russia and China, they are not into the ICC. That's one thing I can tell you. So these are three superpowers. Well, Russia is a superpower in military, but the other two are giants in economic and military and defense. If the three will, bolt in and push for the agenda that ICC should be scrapped or wala na yan, buwagin yan, all of these three have malaki at malakas ang mga influensya ng mga ito sa buong mundo. Kung talagang itong tatlo magbo-bolt in para sabihin na wag na tayo dyan sa ICC na yan, it will happen. The three countries, Russia, China, and the United States are strong countries and very influential in the world. Kung talagang magkakasundo silang tatlo na, they go against ICC. I think the possibility na mabuwag yung ICC is not impossible.